Welcome back to another project here at Thermal Mermaid. Today I'm making a hot process sugar scrub bar. Now this is a hybrid recipe. It's part slow cooked soap, about 40% of the bar is soap, and this will give our solid sugar bars a foaming cleanse when we use it. And the rest of it is a deep exfoliating solid sugar scrub. Now let's get into step by step and show you how to make this at home. But if you want the full recipe for my solid sugar bars, these are listed over at the Learning Library at thermalmermaid.com, and if you're already a member, this recipe is listed in the bath goodies category. Now while I get these oils melted together into my slow cooker, I'm going to start off with a simple and small batch of hot process soap, just like you would with any normal soap recipe. Now this is only 1/2 of a batch for our 3-pound mold because our sugar scrub bars are primarily going to be sugar and oil. This recipe is going to contain about 40% soap for a foaming cleanse, and that's what we're making right here. Now as I'm making my lye water solution, I only need to allow it to settle and cool to about 15 degrees from the oils before adding it into the slow cooker. The first part of this recipe is exactly the same as simple hot process soap making. You don't have to allow the lye water to cool to room temperature because the oils are already getting hotter. We're going to blend this down into the oils with a stick blender until it's completely emulsified and allow this to cook through all the stages needed for it to gel. The only difference here is that this is a smaller batch of soap than what we would normally make to fill a 3-pound loaf. Once this is mixed well, put the cover on the top and allow it to cook for 20 to 30 minutes. Come back and check periodically. There's very little work to do, but as in all slow cooked soap, you'll need to keep an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't expand out of the pot as air is being released. And you'll need to check in to mix it together if the water starts to separate a little, or make sure that it's cooking evenly all the way through. The oils that go into our sugar mixture are going to be free-floating, so it's a good idea to use the oils that are most preferred for lotions. Here, I've selected some of my favorites: hemp seed, avocado, and coconut. The oils that you put into this bar are really going to control the look and feel of your bar. If you put all hard oils like shea and cocoa butter, you'll get a harder, stiffer bar that'll be more lotion bar and less bubbly. I've chosen lighter, softer oils that are also commonly used in lotion, but the texture of this bar is going to be slightly softer and even a little bit rubbery to the touch. Everything is going to remain intact the same way a solid bar of soap will, but the bar features the sugar exfoliant that will give off a foaming cleanse instead of that deep, rich, moisturizing lotion feel. Taking a look over here, it's been about 40 to 50 minutes and you can see the center becoming a deeper, more amber color. We're about halfway until this becomes gelled and finishes cooking, and it's not really too important to identify all the stages of hot process after you've done this a few times. The important part is to see that the change is taking place from that fresh, light outside color to the deep amber that you saw on the inside. And still, we'll mix this up to make sure that it gets even and let it cook some more. Okay, now we're 1 hour and 20 minutes into the cook, and it's just starting to enter the gel phase. The glassy texture is beginning to cover the surface, and as I mix it, you can see it isn't completely even all the way through. I'm going to turn off the heat now because even with the heat off, the gel phase is still going to move forward a bit. And I'm going to mix this for a minute and encourage it to start cooling. When the sugar is added, this is going to completely change the texture, and I want to keep the soap light and loose here by maintaining some of the water. I don't want the water to completely cook off because that makes the soap thicker. Now I'm just starting off by mixing a little bit of the sugar into the soap. I'm just watching to make sure that this doesn't burn and caramelize immediately. The soap isn't too hot and things are looking just right, so I'm going to add the entire amount of sugar mixture into the soap. In today's recipe, I'm making this bar as a sage and citrus fragrance. This one comes from Nature's Garden. It's a nice, light, young fragrance. And also the Crafter's Choice version of this is exquisite. It's a little bit more earthy. Now you can use either one of these. And right now it's time to pour the fragrance oil into the recipe. And as you can see, things are starting to look very rubbery. And I have to move along because we're just reaching the stage where this is about to start setting up. Now this bar will look wonderful with one solid color, and this is where you'd add the colorant. Now in my case, I'm going to give it two colors, yellow and green, both for the sage and the citrus. So I'm going to separate this out into two parts and color each side. Here you may notice what looks like a lot of excess oil. Now this is normal for this recipe, and in fact the whole thing will be sweating oil until it cools. Right now everything's warm and hot, and as the recipe is being processed, just keep mixing everything together until it's ready to be left alone. The floating oils will firm up once everything is cooled. Now it's time to layer the sugar scrub into the mold. The texture is like cookie dough, and you can just start filling it in and layer the colors on top of each other. If it's cool enough to touch with gloves on, you can just pick it up with your fingers and start sculpting it into the mold. You can start pushing it in to make sure that it fills in on the sides and the edges, and as you can see as I'm doing this, it's just getting easier and easier to work with as it's cooling. It's so flexible, it's almost crossed between a rubber and a sand, that you could easily push this into some kind of a shaped mold, but here I'm just going to be cutting this into bars. Now don't forget, if these are the types of recipes that you'd like to see, let me know by hitting the thumbs up button. And if you want to see how I make the entire collection of all my sugar scrubs, whether they're soft, solid, or hybrid cosmetics, make sure that you subscribe to this channel to learn how to make different variations of these sugar scrubs. The sugar scrub is different from making a solid soap because we aren't going to wait 24 hours to cut this. In fact, I only want to wait until it's cooled down. The bars are ready to slice almost as soon as you get it shaped into the mold. Now in this case, we're unmolding after about 3 hours. Now you can wait 12 hours and let it completely cool, but I find it to be a little bit more smooth of a cut, and I get it where I want it when it's still just a bit warm, but it's mostly cooled down. And even as I unmold, you can see a bit of excess oil. This will take about a day before it dries up. Once we get this on the cutter, our solid sugar scrub bars slice beautifully, and we have this cool yellow and green animal stripe to go with the sage and citrus fragrance. The bars are still sweating a little bit, but I'll set these up to dry, and they'll be perfectly dry in about 24 hours. Now they still have a rubbery texture, but they hold up together in the shower in one piece. You can expect that this bar will last much longer than if you would have made a soft, loose sugar scrub that you packed into a jar, and it'll last about half as long as it would be for a solid bar of soap. The sugar scrub will exfoliate, and it'll also give a nice light lather as it's being used. I hope you enjoyed this episode of our hot process sugar scrub bars. If you have any questions about this recipe or you want some help working on it, come on and join us over at thermalmermaid.com. There's a forum where we can talk about any of the recipes to help you work through them, and you can also come lurk over in the Facebook group as well. You'll find the links down below this video. Now let's take a look at these gorgeous bars once the oils have dried after about 2 days, and voila! Here are our hot process solid sugar bars.